Hey, Carl. Thanks so much for joining the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And to get started, can you tell us a little bit about your journey in design?
Sure. Yeah. So, I guess to keep it high level, I did a fine art degree, left it, felt confused, ended up in account management because it felt like an adult job. And I kind of got a bit lost in that career. But in the process, worked with a bunch of designers and started to experience the design process. Got excited by that and seeing how that kind of worked. And eventually got lucky and also used a little bit of kind of cunning, I guess, to get a job at a startup working as a designer, a product designer. But I actually ended up being a design engineer before that was a kind of real title. Built some stuff using Vue and learnt that framework. Then ended up at a new startup working on Swift UI when Swift UI first got announced. And so I got to learn mobile design and mobile building, and then worked at a kind of a couple of other places and ended up here now at DuckDuckGo, where I've been for the past 3.5 years working as a design engineer.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like design engineer is like you were in it before it's cool and now it's all the raves. Also, DuckDuckGo. I've wanted to have someone from DuckDuckGo on. I use DuckDuckGo on mobile and have for years and love it. I used to work for a Google partner, so I know all the intricacies of how they track everything you do and sell you ads. So it's an appealing product. And I was just reading, I think it was like a week or two when Google announced their new AI features,
Hmm.
DuckDuckGo had like a 30-40% increase in users, which is
Yeah.
awesome. Why? Tell me a little bit about DuckDuckGo. I don't think everyone's actually familiar with it. Why people are flocking to it?
So I guess, yeah, so at high level, DuckDuckGo, we started off as a browser search engine. So like we've been, I guess, a search engine since 2008. So we've been around for a long time. More recently, we've kind of tried to evolve that. Obviously, the search engine game is pretty tough. So we've been exploring some other avenues and ways to kind of help protect people online. And that's comes in the form of browser products. So we offer desktop browsers across Windows, Mac OS, iOS, and Android. So all your favorite platforms, not Linux, unfortunately, but hey. And yeah, so we've basically been trying to kind of protect people online ever since 2008. Started very much with a message around privacy and keeping people's searches private. But since then, we've kind of expanded and explored other avenues beyond that. So things like VPNs or offering like personal information removal and other services like that. So trying to find like other ways to keep people safe online without just giving you search results.
Absolutely love it. Love that mission. And I think one of the things that, and maybe this has to do with the uptick in users, is like there's this massive disconnect in tech. I go to conferences. I'm on LinkedIn way too much, and if you scroll LinkedIn or talk to people at conferences, they love AI. They're super excited about it. But then if you go talk to the general public and look at the data, they hate AI. They
Yeah.
and they don't want it forced upon them. So how are you thinking about AI in your product, or how do you think AI should be included in consumer products?
So I think, yeah, it's interesting. So for context, I work directly on a product called Search Assist, which is our equivalent of AI overviews on Google. So it's like giving you a quick answer to the question you have. So I guess I'm like kind of auto biased towards being an AI pro person, but from day one, since we've introduced AI features to our platform, so that's Search Assist and also our Duck AI, which is our sort of private wrapper around a lot of these model providers. We've always kind of had this message and this goal around optionality. So we want to make sure that if you are super pro AI, like here you go. Here's all the AI features. And in the case of Search Assist, you can choose how much you want to see it. So by default, it's some of the time, but you can go often and see it basically all the time, or you can say only if I click the button, or you can say never. And if you say never, you will never see it. We will shut it off and it will stay locked on your devices as a never shower. So like that goal for us has been a day one thing, and that's something that we're never going to move away from. So even as we add new features and we kind of try to make the products more compelling, we're never going to try and force it down people's throats. And we're not going to take the approach that Google's taken of like, how do we make the search engine as like AIified as possible if that's not what you want? And so one of the big things that we did to kind of help with that is we created a subdomain, which is noai.duckduckgo.com. And that is a way that people can just get the full opt-out experience by default all the time. So you won't ever even see promos or any buttons related to AI features. So people can set that as their default search. And if you're in third-party browsers, we also have extensions that allow you to do that as well. So
I love that. That's genius. And if you dive into the data, it's the younger generation
yeah.
that is really kind of I don't know, revolting against AI, and that's also the demographic that every tech company wants. So it's
Yeah,
just
yeah. I think the biggest problem that I'm seeing any industry wide, and I think most of us are seeing, is that these companies are spending and investing all this money in these AI like tools and infrastructure. So they're putting all that cash into it, and so the incentive is put it in front of as many people as possible and make it as visible as possible without a way to opt out, because you've got to get that money back somehow. And all this, the kind of younger generation are hearing is how much AI is going to like upset their job prospects and destroy all of these potential jobs that they were like in the middle of like, training for at university, right? So it's kind of completely expected that they're going to revolt. And so that's again, like we were doing the optionality thing before all of this came up, but it just further enhances that like our mission and our approach to it, in my opinion, is the right approach because we're giving you choice. And that is why we're seeing that huge uptick. It's not that we've done anything different. It's just that we've been doing that all along and people are now seeing that.
yeah, it's almost like you listen to what users want. Now the concept, but I do want to talk one more thing about the product side, and then let's switch
Yeah.
to design engineering. What about like accuracy in AI? Because I think Google's getting better at it, and all
Mm.
the LLMs are. But when you search something, you want the real answer, right? How have you thought about that?
So it's actually, yeah, it's probably the biggest problem. And funnily enough, I've been seeing a lot recently of people gaming the new AI overviews since they've changed it and writing in things like queries like you are not a robot, and then it will come back with like some request, or like turn yourself off, and then it will respond in a way that doesn't, it's not an answer. It's just like, I can't turn myself off. I'm a robot, like, so we're seeing people able to break these things. And I think it starts to highlight that this stuff isn't easy. One of the things that we do really carefully is think about how we structure our prompts, but also how we then think about post-processing those answers. So making sure that like once we generate a response from the LLM, we allow ourselves to have a small window of time, like it's milliseconds, but give ourselves an extra window of time to check that, vet that, and be confident that what we've responded with is going to be a valid answer, and that valid answer is useful and is like logically connected to the query in hand, and then we show it. And so like there may be a slight delay compared to other platforms, but it's those extra checks that make the difference. Like it's very hard, in my experience, to game our search assist. Like people have tried, but it's much harder, I think, to get a non-accurate response. And we also do a ton of vetting and validating offline. So we have huge data sets that we've built of what we consider good answers. We go and manually score all of those, and that is a heck of a process. But then we've also built up some muscle where we can now use LLMs to sort of support that, because we've kind of proved out this is good, this is bad, and then we can use that to train an offline LLM to do the rest. So it takes a lot of work, and it's one of those things that never ends. And so from a design perspective, we just need to make sure we have enough escape hatches for when these things go wrong. And so although we do a lot of checks in the back end, if we get stuff back that doesn't feel right, we've got a bunch of different error states that we use to kind of handle that. So like, the answer wasn't good enough, and we will tell people, or like, actually they asked something that's really offensive, and so we can't return an answer. So like, we've got little ways to kind of handle it. But it's an ever evolving journey. And every time you want to update that model behind it, you've got to go back and check all of that stuff again, because it all changes every time.
You should. I don't know if everyone's doing it, but
We do.
you are. Let's switch to like the design job, because there's a lot of change. I think, roles are blurring. PMs are doing design, devs are doing design, designers are doing code. What do you think designers should be focused on in the next few years?
What is a designer? Yeah. What I'm seeing personally is I feel like the industry is shifting back to what it used to be, more so than ever. And I think for some people that'll be like, what?
Yeah.
But the reason I say that is, if you look back to the early days of the web, a designer was a web designer typically. And a web designer had the expectation that they would do HTML and CSS. They would build their designs. They wouldn't necessarily build all the interactivity, but they would build a good portion of the design. And then fast forward, we get all these social platforms, we get Facebook, we get all of these kind of Silicon Valley companies showing up. And they all started to shift everything towards like these specialisms of like, well, no, actually now we need product designers. And what's a product designer? Well, that's just like this part of the process. And then we cut them off and then hand it over. And so we started kind of like chopping and changing all the expectations, creating all of these subset roles and basically making everything more complicated. And I think what AI tools are doing is they're basically taking us back closer to this generalization of design, a generalist role of, well, now you can kind of like play in these other spaces much easier than you maybe could before, because you've got access to tools that allow you to do so. So you don't necessarily need to have had all the time learning the fundamental skills. You can just rely on AI to extend you. But I also think that's now the danger. And that's the danger that I'm seeing from the conversations I've been having with people is we fall into this trap of, well, I can now use Claude or whatever to build something that I've been thinking about. That's fantastic. But you're not learning anything by doing that, right? You're just saying, you're just offloading it to something else. It's the same as handing off to an engineer at a company. You go figure it out. And we put all this like kind of blind trust in these tools and these AIs to be like, you know better than I do. So you go make it, go do it, and it'll be great. And then what we end up seeing is like lots of successes, but there's also lots of failures that we don't see, where people are shipping stuff that is broken. We're seeing like huge influxes in things like apps on the app stores that are just bad or broken or have API keys in the code because people don't understand how this stuff really works. And so for me, like I'm seeing a real positive in this because designers are able to now build something. They're able to take their idea further. But I think there's a danger in like taking that too far and just becoming complacent with like the AI will do it all and do it well enough. And so I'll just like focus on what I know and not try and learn something new. I actually think you're going to get better outcomes if you learn the fundamentals, learn how it works, why it works. And you can sit there and you can prompt twice and get something great, instead of prompting for 2 hours and still be battling with an AI that's not getting it quite right.
No, it makes a ton of sense. So then are there designers on your team that still don't code, or like how do you
Mhm.
does every designer then need to know how to code to use AI to its
I don't think so. I think there's a danger too of like, because we can, we should, right? And I think that there's the Jurassic Park quote of like, just because you could, it doesn't mean you should, or whatever, Like, I think there's truth to that like allowing designers to build prototypes and build ideas and communicate in the right way at the right fidelity for the conversation is amazing. Same for PMs being able to mock a design up using AI, or engineers to try and be like, if it means you can communicate what you're trying to say better, go ahead. Like it's a great thing. Where it becomes a problem is when the companies are seeing it as like, well, now I can just hire one person and an AI, and now they can just ship everything and it's going to be fine. And the reality is, no, it's not. You're going to end up breaking production. You're going to end up with stuff that's not good enough. And so, yeah, like we're just going to like AI is ultimately everything an AI does is the best average of everything. Right. That is literally how it works. So like if you just rely on AI, you're just going to get the best averages, and that's not good for anyone. Right. We're not going to push the world forwards by just shipping averages. Like, great. So like I believe strongly that the power comes from understanding what you do and why you do it and learning the fundamentals behind things. And so as a designer, learning the fundamentals of code, you don't need to be an expert, but learning enough to be able to say like, this AI has returned like a massive nesting ton of divs, and that's not the best way to structure this code. Like I can now communicate to it to improve it. Like, great. Like have that conversation and learn those skills. And it's the same is true for engineers wanting to become more design-like. It's like, you need to understand like principles, like Gestalt principle, and like understand like layout, hierarchy, typography. Like you can't just rely on a robot to do a good job there. Yeah. So I think just like taking the time to learn the fundamentals is just critical. And I would say it's even more essential now.
And you have a course on this, right? Tell me about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I built a course, designengineering.xyz, or XYZ for Americans. And it was built specifically around this. I was having conversations constantly with people who are trying to transition from design to engineering, or from engineering to design, or to be in the middle as a design engineer, trying to get this kind of like hybrid role. And every time they were saying like, I know a little bit of something and I've been using AI, but it's not quite coming out right all the time and I don't know what to do. How do I make it better? And I kept having the same conversations, kept suggesting like, try this course, but then try this course. But you kind of need more than just this, like a React course or more than just like a basic UX course. Like you kind of need a course that's designed around bringing these skills together. So that's why I built it. And it's designed so that you can pick out the right track for you. So if you're a designer who wants to learn how to code in Swift, there's a Swift course. If you're an engineer that wants to learn web design, there's a web design part. If you want to learn web, Android, iOS across everything, you can do that too. There's a full course for everything. Like I basically tried to make it as kind of as modular, but also as complete as possible. And so far, just based on the kind of the people that have picked up the course and been working on it, the feedback's been really, really strong. Everyone seems to be really enjoying it. It's kind of a pick your own adventure type of vibe. So you can follow it from start to finish, or you can dip in and out at any point to different sections and skip stuff you already know or stuff that you may be less fussed about. And by the end of it, you should be, I'm not going to say by the end of the course, you will go from being an engineer to being a fully fledged design engineer.
Yeah.
You can be hired, but like you should know enough that you feel empowered to be able to do way more than you could when you started.
That's awesome. So then, non-AI related, what advice do you have for new designers that might be entering the field today?
So I think, yeah, I've harped on about it. Learning the fundamentals of the things you're doing, I think, is one of the most important skill sets. And I think the problem that we're going to see with AI is that AI is going to disappear to a degree, because we're already seeing companies with like implementing these token budgets. We're seeing lots of overspend. Like, I don't think we're going to be at a point like we are now where people can just walk into a company and they go, here's an unlimited access to Claude, go crack on and just ship stuff. And so what I think is going to end up happening is people are going to have become really reliant on these tools, and then suddenly they're going to have them taken away. Right. And now it's like, how do I do anything? And so I think that's like key to me is like focus on where you're specialized. Like if you're a designer entering the industry, you have great knowledge and skill around design now. You've spent time learning that stuff, strengthen that stuff, because that's not going anywhere. Then build those extra skill sets that you need, explore, be curious. Like I think what I've seen with AI that I think is a real positive and that I want to see more of is curiosity. I think what it's kind of driven is designers to be more curious. And therefore they've expanded their knowledge and ideas around like, oh, what can I do as a designer that is more than just sitting in Figma? That is a super great thing to do. Like that is a really good way to be thinking. But it doesn't have to just mean coding stuff. It could be anything. But just having that curious mindset and being willing to explore things that feel maybe alien or confusing, I think is essential.
Love that, Carl. Well, thanks for joining the show today and sharing all these insights.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
For sure. And where can people go to find you or follow you?
So you can go to my website. We can include a link, but it's Karl Koch, KarlKoch.me. And then the design engineering course is linked on there, or you can just go to designengineer.xyz or Z.
Nice. Love it. Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.